welcome everyone. Let me make sure I got the date right here. It is Thursday, June 18th at 1 p.m. Eastern. We're here for S3E Live, Season 3, Episode 11, and I am joined by the CEO of TenHats, Mr. Brian Strong. How are you doing today, Brian?
Doing well, Casey. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Appreciate you being on today. For those of you that are not aware, simply put, Brian has experience building outside sales and marketing machines and growth engines for MSPs. He's taken an MSP, really today's topic is from 2 to 20 million, building the system that MSPs can build to generate recurring income, can generate new opportunities, and building a process that isn't so much just about adding new revenue, but building a better client journey along the way from the first time they are aware of your MSP. Brian, I like to start it with what's topic, what's on your mind right now? What's the first thing? You're in this S3E Live, you're here to go. What is the thing that you just love to share and shout to the masses today?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's one of the things I just want to share is like, that MSPs can build an outside sales engine. It's like that they can start growing, and the owner can get out of doing the selling if they do it the proper way. And it's one of those. Why do I believe that? One, we did it. And where did I start? I started as an OSR in the MSP space back in 2005. So, I lived it, I breathed it, so it's one of those, it's kind of it's a passion to me on helping MSPs grow. I mean, I think one of my kind of passions too is like to see more MSPs get past that $10 million mark. I think getting past that $10 million mark, you can start building in some resiliency and redundancy into your team, and you start working on, serving bigger clients, and you grow enterprise value for yourself. So, I mean, I think that's it. It's just kind of win-win all the way around.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned there the 10 million and also the enterprise value. I know you were just at PAX 8. Unfortunately, we missed each other. It's such a big event. It really is I would say the Super Bowl, or it's the most important event in the space right now. But one of the sessions I sat in was, the 5 mistakes that MSPs make with the valuation process. And I think the biggest one it comes down to is, are you thinking of your business as an asset, a true business and an asset, or does it become another job for you? Because if it's an asset, you're going to build systems and processes, redundancy, as you spoke about. But if it's more of a job, you're going to do what it takes just to get the job done. You're going to be task-oriented without that goal in mind. When you were building this sales process, and for those that aren't aware, from 2 million to 19 million in about 5 years, all organic, no acquisitions.
That's right. Yeah, no acquisitions, all organic. Yeah.
So if people don't understand, that's 745%.
Yes.
That's massive. That is a 7x, 7.5x increase in that time. And one of the areas that I hear every MSP talk to is struggling with is, I need more leads. I need more leads. I need more leads. But in reality, there's typically a bigger root cause or a larger issue at scale. When you started that process to go from 2 to 19, where did you really first start to say, hey, I'm at this emerging MSP, I have revenue, we have monthly recurring, we have some systems, some SOPs. In your role, what was that first step to say, hey, I want to build really that first million of additional ARR, or annual recurring revenue, to start to accelerating growth?
Yeah, so I mean, basically, it's there's a couple different things that I really kind of looked at is what was the makeup of our client base, and then from the standpoint of where we're on average revenue, because I mean, if you look at the average revenue, that kind of gives you a target of where you should be focused on prospecting, because if you're gonna, as the MSP grows, your average revenue needs to increase as well. I mean, you can keep it there, but I kind of give this analogy. It's like, there's 2 ways to have a $10 million MSP. If you have 80 clients paying you $10,000 a month, or 400 paying you $2,000 a month, completely different businesses, completely different valuations. And so then it's really, when the size accounts that you need to go get, then it's prospecting for those accounts and targeting towards getting into those deals. Yeah, I hear all the time that I need more leads, but I think what they're trying to say is I need more right customer leads, right prospect leads, so that I can, grow the MSP in a consistent, but also like a manageable way as well.
Yeah, when I hear that I need more leads, and even if it's not just this industry, but this industry specifically, I've sat in that hat of an MSP saying, man, nobody knows who we are. It's a hard
Yeah,
process to explain what we do is different. They're saying, oh, you're a computer guy when we were cybersecurity, process oriented, redundancy, operational efficiency focused. And, it came down to, and I love that you said, is that first step is kind of differentiation and analysis. If you've grown to, let's call it 2 to 4 million, 2 to 3 million, depending on your market, you probably have a couple things in your business that are of such importance and value to you, but you may not actually be aware of or easily accessible, meaning, what is our client market segment? What are our differentiators?
yeah,
Why are we winning in a certain market better than other markets? What do we do better than the competitors? And then I think one that you are really a huge proponent, I see you posting all the time about, is understanding what does our average client pay per month, or what is the average client value? And so many times that information is muddied up in outdated agreements, partial agreements, or hey, it's one client, but they have projects and they have service licenses and
that's
managed
right.
service agreement. We also are doing a little bit of VC still or whatever. Being able to get one tangible area for that number is going to give you clarity, because I see sales as two areas. Yes, it's that qualitative, conversational, providing information, expertise, guidance side, but it's kind of a numbers game. And we were talking about this a little bit, that if you know the numbers, i.e., the inputs that you would like to achieve a certain goal, it's going to make it a lot easier. So if you say, okay, I know my average client is $2,000 a month, we need to add $25,000 of MRR in the next 6 months to support our growth objectives, cash
Right.
obligations, whatever. It's going to allow you to back into saying, do I want 10 clients at 2,500 a month, or can I find 2 or 3 clients at 6, 8, 10,000 if
That's
I
right.
have a differentiating factor, which is going to not only produce less strain, because if I said, hey, the simple math, what's easier to implement, 10 clients or 3 clients?
Right.
3.
That's
So
right.
I think when you started that process, did you find, hey, the biggest issue is not being access to information, not knowing where to target? Like, what was that first step an MSP owner who has 9 million priorities is saying, hey, I hear you, Brian, I want to focus on my sales. Where do I start to build organic growth in my MSP?
Yeah, so I mean, part of it too, like yes, and so think about the size of accounts that you want. Like I was talking about, like that average, that average revenue, and then start thinking about companies in your geographic area that, or in your marketplace that fit that, right? And so then it's like one of those. Do you start targeting those accounts to start getting introduced into those, or somehow getting a warm lead? A lot of people will cold call, and cold calling's down a list, but it's one of those where if you look at the statistics on it, it's like a 1 to 2% close ratio. You know, if you start going up to scale too, if you have like a cold lead, that means like you just have a name and a number. It's like it goes up to like 20%.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a big difference, and if there's something that's going along inside that business that you know of, that they are going through a change, then they're mentally prepared to talk to about other things in their business that they would change as well. And so it's really starting to think about a structured target on how do you prospect, and we use COIs as our primary marketing, our primary prospecting tool, because it's one of those, like every person that you talk to knows 150 people. That it's the Dunbar number if you haven't looked it up before. And so then it's like, how many those 150 relationships, they probably know somebody that you want to know. So it's one of those. That's how we kind of target it. And it's in COIs, people are like, well, who should be a COI? It's
Can you, Brian,
anybody.
before, just I know not everybody COI, can you just elaborate?
Yeah, sorry. In a world of acronyms, there's always another one, right? So a center of influence is what it's called. And so basically, you think about a center of influence is somebody that is in the business world that is calling on the same type of clients that you would want to call on. And so, they're in those businesses that that you would want to work with, or they call on those same kind of industries. So they have relationships, and they may be able to pass information that would be good for you in your business to know. And so that's one of those things that we really kicked up when I first started, is how do we develop a prospecting plan and a funnel to start bringing in good qualified leads. And then too, once you have a good qualified lead, is making sure you have a sales process to walk the person through the sales process. There's a secret that most people don't think about or know, is that all buyers, all prospects have their own system that they use when they're vetting vendors, right? And so we talked about it on line before, but it's like one of those where when you first engage with a prospect, they are going to withhold information. Why do they withhold information? They don't trust you. You're a stranger. And so, if they withhold information, that information is the information we need to help us walk through the sales process. So, right. And so a lot of times what we do, what I see is salespeople start pitching or telling about the services and the features and those kind of different things. And the prospect likes that because they want to glean all the information they can from you, because they're trying to evaluate. That's free consulting. And then it's like one of those, then they give us like sometimes what I call just, what false buying signals. Some people call it like happy ears, is like they give us indications of, hey, I really like a proposal to see where we're going. They hand them a proposal, and then you don't hear from again. They put you in chase mode. Do they use that information, against you with another competitor type thing? So being able to control the whole sales process is a significant way of increasing your close ratio. And I have like a whole 6-step process where all my sales team goes through to make sure that they stay in control of the sales process, and it helps both the prospect discover what their actual pains have impact to the business, and if we have solutions that we can help solve them. And that's how we've closed a lot of business.
Yeah, I have to resonate because sitting in the accounting world and what we do in the MSP space, my conversations, I shift, and I always say, it's a discovery call, it's a right fit assessment, but really I just try to provide as much value as possible.
Right.
No one in this space is talking to more MSPs about accounting than myself. I really firmly believe that.
Yeah.
Hundreds of MSPs a year, close to 1,000 over 4 years, and constantly, this is where I live and breathe. So if I can give them anything that's truly valuable, even if it's not related to what I do, if it's trends in the space, if it's, one of the biggest compliments that I love getting is that, you really understand this marketer. Yes, thank you. Like an accountant knows what an MSP, and I think using that first, somebody scheduled a time with you, they're taking time out of their day, nobody likes meetings and they want to talk with you. They've already expressed interest. One of the biggest things that I always say is, hey, I just want to understand what prompted you to reach out to STRI today. How'd you find us? And what prompted you to finally say, hey, I need to talk to an accountant, and building better questions that aren't necessarily leading. You don't want to lead them to a predefined answer, but you want to lead them to a predefined area of conversation, emphasis, and focus where you're like, hey, I know you're having problems all over, but what was the core issue that said, I want to talk to somebody from here? Because one, it's going to let me know, am I really the right person? Are we the right people for them to talk to? Or do I need, excuse me, to send them to the right place, or is there somebody in my network? And that just gets rid of the guardrails, like when you're speaking the language. So you can't do that if you're knowing 15, 20 industries as an MSP. If you're really across the board, it's really going to be hard to be a subject matter expert and have that authority for every single market, as opposed to, no, I really specialize in CMMC, or, I know government enterprises really well. We crush it with sheriff's departments and auditors' offices. Like, you can get so highly specialized that there will be more business than you will be able to handle if you take it that way. And I think another point that you made was, backing into those systems and targets. Do you have a way that if you were to give it, if I gave you, Mr. MSP, 12 leads today, what would you do with them? They're all warm. there's a 50% chance, there's a coin toss from the first moment they talk to you about buying. Do you have some way or some process that's going to get them to calling that coin in your favor? Or are you going to have the anomaly of saying, wow, I got 10 qualified leads and we closed one, which is
Right.
almost statistically impossible at that point.
Right. Yeah. So it's yeah, and that's a great point. So when you're starting a meeting or first engagement with someone in that FTA, there's kind of two ways to get to trust. You can go through trust by getting somebody to like you first, and then eventually they'll trust you. Or the other way to trust is respect. So if somebody respects you, then they'll trust you. And typically what I find is respect gains trust faster. Just because they like you, just because you can talk about the World Cup game that was going on yesterday and you have some commonality, doesn't mean that that's going to translate into them trusting you with their, IT systems, right? So from a respect standpoint, if you can build respect, then all of a sudden it's like, hey, you've placed yourself in an area of authority in that space that they're more likely to trust you with their IT. And so the best way, what we found is that to build trust or build respect is to ask good questions. Find out about their business. What are those? They start a lot of times with a pain, but a pain to me is what I find is people don't dig deep enough for what the pain that truly is. What I call that step is impact. So because it's like if you have your in your body, you may have a hamstring that gives you trouble all the time, but the root cause of it is down in your foot,
Yeah.
right? And so if you just concentrate on that hamstring, you're never going to solve the problem. So the same thing with a pain. So if you start asking and those pain, and then you start reversing them, trying to figure out and do discovery to what are the impact to the business, and then specifically to the person. And it's usually around like time or money. We're wasting time or we're losing money, or frankly, it could be something that it's a cybersecurity incident that just happened. It like the person's job could be on the line. And a lot of people think, well, that's a little bit different. That's money because it's personal money coming to their family. So that becomes could be a very good impact for why they need to choose the right vendor. And so that's one of the steps is just really the whole impact step of understanding what is really going on in the business. What's the root, what's that root cause and that impact to the company? Once you get to that, there's money that's associated to fixing that problem. Then you figure out the urgency of it. Is it something they immediately need to do, or is it, it's just a nice to have? That'll indicate whether that deal is going to go further or not.
The mentioning about asking good questions and great questions, and MSPs be like, what should I ask? And it's like you'll figure it out over time, but things that matter to your client. You can ask any language, ChatGPT, whatever you want. Ask them whatever you think you should ask that market and what their biggest pain points are.
Right.
Research out there is so free, and I think one of the biggest areas of I don't want to necessarily say emphasis, but more so importance within a sales structure are the systems of accountability and also feedback. So you're able to say, oh, if I'm asking these questions and I'm getting what type of answers, how does that play into my onboarding process? As an MSP, you're going to eventually see a trend, and then you're going to be able to train, because one of the biggest traps you always see is, hey, I'm a founder, I'm an owner, I focus on sales and I drive sales up, and then it hits a little bit of a point again where I can't really grow much because I'm still involved everywhere else because I'm the owner of the business. Building those things up front really helps support you, even if it's so simple. It could be 5 questions, 2 questions that you ask in every single call, and that will give you the answers and lead to where your focus should be when you're talking about setting up a system for scaling. Because I have to assume that from 2 to 20 million, you probably weren't the only one involved in sales.
No, I was not. Actually, I have a team that does. So, I trained them to, in my process that I had, that I have, because I mean, it's one of those, as the CEO, it's especially in today's world that we're living in, with so much transition, that the owner, the CEO, has to get out of doing those daily tasks and really focus on where the business is going, instead of working in it. So I'm pretty hyper focused, or passionate about, hey, it's time for MSPs to really to figure out this outside sales engine. Because I mean, there's like, you see it today is, it's cybersecurity practices, vCISO services, AI is coming down, is here, and everybody's talking about it. And you can name probably two or three at compliance, the highly compliance. And so all those different areas take different specialists in to do that. And that's one thing, TenHats that we built is, like, we have a lot of specialists in certain areas so that we can serve different clients in different ways, right? And so if you're ingrained with doing sales all the time, you can't focus on those. But you're so that the MSP owner needs to be looking at, like, who's the partner that's going to help us with vCISO services, and do they fit inside of our organization, and do they deliver the services? Who's going to be your AI partner? Do we bring that in house? Compliance. Do we partner with somebody or bring that in house? Those big decisions of, like, how structurally the company is going to move into this new in this new area, and I mean, is really important. So something has to give. They have to recapture some of their time. And I think one of the big areas is sales, is figuring out how to get an outside sales engine that can run and scale without them. In addition to, you'll never get, I mean, it's hard to get past 10 million. There's always exceptions to the rule. But all the MSPs that are past 10 million predominantly have done it through outside sales. They just figured it out. They gutted it out and figured it out. And I'm here to say it can be done. And that's one of the things why I post. I've got a book coming out later in the year that can, will give some, people guidance on how to build an outside sales engine. So, which I'm excited about. And, it's just one of those, the space, I've been in it for 20 years now. And I just love it. It's complicated. It's always changing. It's nuanced. The people are great. We do a good service. And so it's a fun industry where I'm trying to help my, other folks that are living through this, this industry. It takes a special person to be in this industry, I can tell you that.
It does, and I see there's a huge energy of youth and excitement and anticipation, but there's also a market of just, we're tired, we've had a lot, we're worn out. I don't know if I've heard it. I don't know if I have another wave in front of me. I don't know if I have this, and
I get it.
Obviously, the accountant is going to say, "Hey, focus on your foundational accounting, your books, and your numbers first."
Oh yeah.
That's going to lead any decision. But whether you want to grow, you want to sell, you want to run it as a lifestyle, you want to take the next wave, or you're saying, you know what, I'm just going to ride this off into the sunset as a business until I sell. It's going to start with two areas: the foundational understanding of your finances, which is going to then say, hey, if we make this, we have cash to cover our obligations. If we want to do this, how do we do that? How do we pay for it? How much revenue do we need? And how much do we need to attract and draw new business in to get to those objectives? Because, I see a very clear line in the sand. There's MSPs that have been growing 5% pretty consistently, 5 to 10 for the last 10 years. And then let's call it even the last 3 or 4 years. And then I see a lot of MSPs that are growing 20 to 45% year over year because they have invested in the right areas. They delegate, they build a good process. And by delegate, I'm not saying, hire outside sales reps in some calling center or a bunch of ads or specialists. No, they build a process. That's right. Oriented, and they start from their P&L, which sounds weird, but you start sales. What are the impacts on the P&L? If we add this amount of revenue, what does it do to SG&A? What does it do to commissions? What does it do to marketing? And do we see that return on investment along with the CAC, the client acquisition cost? What is that payback period? So then you have a clear granularity in saying, if I put in X, it will produce Y, and this impacts Z. And I think
that's right.
where if you understand that sales is that growth engine, it is the revenue engine, it is the top line engine, sales starts for everything. I think it makes it a lot easier than saying, oh, where do I focus operationally? You focus on the area of opportunity as it relates to your business. What do you do well? Where can you win? Do you have differentiators? And then how do you price? Because, I see a lot of MSPs, they sometimes will say, oh, I can grow through saving costs. No one's ever grown by saving costs. No one's
That's
ever
right.
proportionately year over year by saying we save this amount of money, we cut this. They find it by saying, hey, we were found areas where we could find the savings and investments on a monthly basis, and then they redeploy that into high value areas: financial forecasting, sales enablement, marketing and ad spend, training and development, and then they're future proofing their business. Because I think there's just this clear line of the MSPs that are in that OML 3, 4, and 5, that higher level of maturity, they're going to be able to take advantage of AI a lot faster, quicker, and seamlessly compared to those that are still struggling with the same old issues. Where if you were struggling with the same issues when cloud computing and cybersecurity and everything became a forefront, the next wave is not going to really apply to you because you haven't earned the right to get there yet. And that's kind of where I'm like, if you don't focus on growing in sales the same way that, every MSP I talk to, they're like, most of our clients have Copilot. They're not even using Power Automate and Power BI within Microsoft. But then they're talking to me about 6 other paid ChatGPT bolt-on AI products.
That's right.
Same thing you do for your clients internally. Are you leveraging your tools? Are you leveraging your people? And do you have systems set to scale? If not, don't go to these conferences. Stop talking to software and vendors. You are focusing on optimization for something that needs to really be more operational in focus and emphasis, instead of trying to make it a little bit better. No, you need a true overhaul of a lot of these systems. When you joined and when you started this process, let's say, hey, we have a sales team, we're growing, you're 2 or 3 years in, you're like, I want to make sure the success continues. What were the things that you did, or the guardrails or things you put in place to say, hey, we've grown pretty well for the first 2 or 3 years. I want to keep this exponential growth going. Just what were the things you did to keep that and said, hey, I really want to take this focus? Because you said having a prospect plan, building the systems, really important. But once you start seeing that success, you're like, how do I repeat that success continuously?
Yeah, and also just to back up just a little bit too, just from the standpoint of, I think this is an important story to tell, is that, a lot of people, I've gotten comments like it's hard to believe. And so, when I first joined, I had 3 people on my sales team, and I started coaching them and training them. I knew a couple of them weren't going to make it, which was fine. It just wasn't the industry for them. And so, but one of the things too is like, about 7 months in, we had only sold about $8,000 in reoccurring revenue. And so I looked at the couple of guys that were still on staff, on the sales team, and I said, hey, we're going to sell $10,000 a month for the rest of the year. And one of the guys looked at me and he goes, that's impossible. And I was like, why is that impossible? And he goes, I've never seen it done. And I looked at him and I was like, I did it by myself when I was selling. And so it was one of those that, there's a lot of MSPs out there that don't believe that they can sell $10,000 a month on a consistent basis. And that's one of the things, I'm kind of out here talking about is like, it can be done. I can show you that it's been done, and I can prove that it can be done and that the process does work. So, and it's one of those, like when you set those expectations, and one of the things too is as I started, I was like, we will be a $20 million MSP. Yeah. I knew that we were going to be a $20 million MSP. I mean, it was like one of those, it was like a mission to be on a $20 million MSP. And so even my team would get a little bit frustrated with me. It's like when we were at 2 and then we would hit 5 and we're like, man, we're starting to get pretty big. I'm like, no, we're not big. It's like 7 and it's like, we're still not there, and it's like 10. I'm like, we're starting to get some traction, but it was one of those leading towards them. Because one of the things I've been in another MSP, and we got past 10 million, and is the quality of life for everybody gets better when you get past 10 million. Why is that? You start building redundancy in staff, so when somebody goes on vacation, they are on vacation and they don't get called. And then the owner and the founder has some leadership in place that they can leave, right? So not everybody's working 60 hours a week. I've been there. I've done that, and we didn't want to do it in this MSP. And it was one of those, like, we knew that we needed more staff so that everybody has a better quality of life. And we knew that we needed expertise in a vast number of areas. And how do you get that? You have to build revenue. And it's like funny, like the one thing you were talking about before is like, well, people will tell us, from the standpoint of like, well, what's your net profit percentage? It's like, it doesn't, I think it needs to be reversed. How much money do you want to end up at the end of the year? Or what's your EBITDA? Do you want it 1.5 million? Do you want it 2 million? So if you do that, and it's like, well, if you're, if you're what, 2 million and and yet 20%, I mean, you're going to have to be an $8 million MSP to get there, right? And so it's like one of those, or no, that's not right, 10 million, but 10 million. So okay, well, I want to 25, and we have to get to 8 million. So it's like one of those, you have to grow to get there to get the revenue that you want at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. Once again, math equation. If you want 25% EBITDA, guess what? Everything that's not there above the line, you have 75% of your revenue to work with. So
That's right.
I think that's a big thing. Oh, I'm an $8 million a year MSP. Okay, how much are you trying to take home? Because if you're trying to take home a good chunk of that, you actually have to act within the parameters of a $6 or a $7 million MSP.
That's right.
Oh, and if you're doing X, Y, and Z, this is where I always say a good CPA can prepare a tax return and do a good job, put the numbers in the right spots and know. But a great CPA is going to understand the implication of taxes on your business and cash flow. And it's the same thing. It's understanding where your inputs impact your outputs everywhere else to say, oh, building that outcome driven results. The fact that you say, hey, we want to be a $20 million MSP, even when we're 2, we started acting and serving and doing as if we were already there, because that's what's going to lead you in there. It's that reverse engineering. It's
Yes, that's right.
Or a visualization. Oh, I know what it's like. I can see it's there. I know it's possible. What do we need to do to operate like that? Because you shouldn't fall into success. People don't just fall into a $10 million MSP.
That's
They
right.
fall into $1 to $3 million MSPs all the time. I see that everywhere. Oh, I got a couple clients. The next thing you know, I got this and some staff.
That's right.
I got $3 million a year. But you don't accidentally scale an MSP. You don't accidentally grow year over year. You don't accidentally grow by
That's right.
50%.
That's right, and I agree. And if you start like you were saying, and I've said this many times, it's like if you start with the end in mind, where do I want to be? Then you start working towards that. And I mean, we had bad days for sure. Bad weeks. It's like one of those. But at the same time, if we knew what we were going, it's like, okay, but this is just part of the journey to get to the goal. And so it didn't stop us from continuing to, pick ourselves back up, learn from our mistakes, and move on. You know, and also too, it's like from the standpoint of building all those systems and controlling your cost and know where they are from the finance side, and then building, redundant all these different departments from the standpoint of sales and all these specialists and all that stuff where, the owner can actually work on the business, and that's also valuable too whenever they do want to sell. It's like, like all the, if you sell to a PE or a strategic, if they can pull the owner out of the business and it still functions, for 3 months or whatever it is, I mean, you'll get another, point or two. I mean, your multiple will go up. I'm not going to put a number on it, but it'll go up.
I can put a number, having a founder transcending organization, meaning like you described, CEO could get hit by a bus or could leave for 3 months and the business will continue at least 90% of what it's already doing in terms of efficiency improvements.
Yeah.
Question. That can improve your multiple by 2 to 8x EBITDA. 2 to 8. I've seen it. I've seen the MSPs. They said, hey, we built to transcend the leadership, and it's that secondary area. And actually, in that talk that I talked about, that 5 mistakes, I think it was Brian Davies from C-Level Coaching, PAX8, all of that. He was explaining essentially that every year you should take 2 weeks. You should take a sabbatical for 2 weeks as the founder, as an MSP owner. Give yourself a break. And this isn't a vacation per se. It could be, but it's more about you completely get out of the business and see what areas start to have issues, then when you come back, you already know where your areas of priority need to be and your focus is.
That's a
And
really
it's
good
going to
one.
help build that multiple because, revenue's great, the numbers, the math, that improves. That's where your basis valuation starts. But it's the other things, the differentiators. Like you said, oh, we have a VC so line, that's great, and it transcends, it continues to generate revenue. There's a multiplier increase. Oh, we have an owner and we have a secondary layer of leadership. We're doing level 10 meetings. We have
Yes.
operational driven metrics and efficiencies.
Yes.
That is what makes these private equity or in reality the strategic partners, because we work with a lot of other MSPs. You talk about that 10 million mark, you're starting to get legitimate. You hit that 10 to 12, you can say, am I a buyer now? Do I have
Yeah.
the systems and can I buy another MSP? Can any of these million to 2 million, can I buy an asset person? Can I buy a client list? Can
That's
we
right.
build, we have an MSP that's doing this where they are saying, hey, we really want to get back into the security and cabling world, that we can buy somebody that's already doing it and has these contracts with managed security of like, a mall or whatever, and they're doing the cameras and that, and they're saying we want to buy one of those instead of starting from scratch. But it takes that time to build your cash and say, hey, how are you going to finance?
That's
Are
right.
you using leverage, using debt? And then saying, oh, we can really grow to this, as opposed to, we're just going to kind of go one step at a time, haphazardly. No, having that outcome and what you're trying to hit in mind is going to unlock a lot of freedom. And I really do think, it used to be 5 to 6 million, but that 10 million mark is kind of the standard. You kind of alluded to it. 10 million in
Yeah.
revenue, 10 million in EBITDA. You are already considered best of the best in class in terms of being ripe for acquisition, but then also being able to do organic reinvesting growth, taking your own cash to really systems and scale. Because, you're going to be able to put a large chunk of cash every month into this.
That's
And
right.
I've been saying this all year that MSPs, more often than not, they hire before they're ready. They hire a bunch of people, they hire a bunch of technicians thinking, oh, I need to have staff to help support. When in reality, no, you need differentiators. You should, instead of having a bunch of people at 60 to 80,000 a year that are all kind of similar skill sets, you're better off building a service line, seeing how much do I need to bring in $100,000 to $120,000 a year,
That's right.
especially then can grow a business line, own the P&L, own that business segment, and grow and be a supplement to the core business. I think that's where a lot of MSPs miss the mark, because they focus on saying, I just want to have enough people on staff. And meanwhile, 70% of revenue goes to overhead labor. And they're like, oh, my margins aren't there. My profits that no. Yeah, it's sitting in a cubicle. It's sitting in your office. And I'm not saying don't hire or start firing, but I'm saying be aware, be conscious in these decisions, and don't think of this as I'm filling a role. Fill gaps and needs in your business with talent instead. That seems to be the kind of modern, hey, I'm under 5 million and hiring is kind of difficult. That seems to be the more modern recipe of saying, where are my areas of need, and hiring for skills and that set,
Yeah.
instead of, oh, I need a level 1, a level 2, or a specific role.
Agreed. Agreed too. And it's one of those, I get asked this all the time: sales or operations, what should you work on first, right? The chicken or the egg, and really, what I tell people is like, it's sales. And why is because every time you get operations fixed, wherever, at whatever level you're at, it will break once you start growing again. And so it's like one of those, it's, if you know that walking into it, then it's like, and you lead your team in that way that, hey, it's going to be messy. We're going to figure stuff out. We're going to take care of the client. We're going to make mistakes, and we will get operationally better. I'm not saying not get operationally better, but, being okay with, hey, we're going to bend a little bit from time to time, and so because you're going to hit these natural progressions every time you add, a different layer or a different expertise, or all the processes have to be redone again. And you just got to be okay with that, because ultimately you got to get to that, whatever that mark that you want to hit in your business. Say it's $10 million. Hey, we got to do everything to get there first. And then as we're going, we're always, getting operationally better. But when we hit that mark, it's one of those, then we can really spend the time of really honing in all of our operations, making sure we're controlling our cost and all those kind of different things. And then that's when it'll show up on the bottom line.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point there because obviously sales, I'm biased, but sales is the most important thing. Generating revenue, or you don't have a business, you have a
Right.
nonprofit. And I think you said it, operations are going to break. And you know what? Your service clients, your service boards, things are going to break whether you have new money coming in or not. And it's a hell of a lot better to have money coming in to fix and have to those
Yeah.
problems than, hey, sales, we need that extra pressure because we don't have any money. We got to fix this. You should invest in sales because it's going to
Right.
continue to feed you. Because think of it this way. It's the whole hole in the cup metaphor. If there's a couple small holes in your cup from operations, no matter what you do from sales, you're going to constantly be filling it. You're not going to run out. But if you constantly don't have it, you're just waiting on big bulks. Oh, every 3 months we get a good client, or we get a good contract, a couple times
Oh
a year.
yeah.
You're going to feel that squeeze in between. And that's when you talk about what does it mean to manage cash flow?
Yes.
That's what it's like right there, saying, hey, if I know I have $10,000 of revenue coming in and I know at least 6,000 of that is going to hit the bottom line after 1 month after we pay the people to serve, that's going to give you a lot more confidence than saying, ooh, we have this amount of revenue and we need to deploy some money from elsewhere to this problem or to this
Yes.
or to this investment. It's a whole different conversation, and then you're less likely to take the risks that you need to solve those problems because these aren't linear. I laugh
Correct.
that you talk about, this going in. We've kind of done that. We've broken things this year with our sales process because we've added 100% more clients than we did. Actually, it's about 150 compared to last year in these first 6 months. And it's like, that's great by design because guess what? Oh, money's coming in. We can deploy. We had some churn. We had an MSP sell. We had this large healthcare company that moved on after, all the funding they did as they're supposed to. It doesn't hurt as much. There's not
That's
as much
right.
pressure because you've softened the blows. It's kind of that, hey, a little bit of maintenance is better than fixing. Maintaining is really sales. I look at sales as the maintenance of the business. It is the life support. If you're constantly putting deposits into maintenance, you don't have nearly as many big projects or rehauls of the whole
That's
structure.
right.
I think that's where you and I preach a lot about that. It's that
Yeah.
small deposits add a lot more than big, one-time deposits. It's those little inputs on
Oh
a
yeah.
daily basis make the world of difference when you're talking about, hey, 7 months, we'd only added $8,000 of MRR. But I'm assuming the 7 months after that, you probably did a hell of a lot more than 8,000 because you spent that time on the forefront doing the hard work where you don't really see that true progress in front, but you can visualize the end goal and it's going to happen. And it
Oh
is.
yeah. So for the rest of the year, so just to give you to circle back to that, so I had that speech with them in March. For the next 9 months, we only missed the $10,000 mark 1 month out of the year,
Wow.
and that was October. We sold $8,200, but in those 9 months, we sold 112,000. Yeah, $112,000. I mean, and at first it was like, man, it was scratching and clawing and fighting and doing everything we could to get those deals over the line and get the momentum built. But I mean, once that happened, they saw it and they believed it.
Yeah.
They never questioned it anymore. So it went from, hey, we've got a deal that's, a small $4,000 a month deal, because it was 10 that was our average, so it was like one of those, like the whole dynamics of the company changes. And, being a part of a winning team that's growing fast, even the techs like it. And also too, from the standpoint from, kind of going back to like, we keep harping on sales too and I'm kind of a little bit of a unicorn in the space of being a sales guy that it runs a MSP. Most of my friends come from a technical background, and part of this is like why I preach to them too of like really focusing it on trying to get that sales engine up and running is because it's usually not very fulfilling for them. They do it because they have to, and they're probably the best in the company because they have the most passion towards it. But if they can get past that hump of getting over and really figuring out the outside sales, they get back to doing what they're passionate about, which kind of goes back to that whole thing of what we talked about all the way through is good quality of life, and that's where I kind of want all of the MSP owners out there to have that in MSPs.
Absolutely. we're a little past time, but that's okay because this has been a great episode, and I have 3 or 4 more topics that I'd like to have you for the rest of the year on here.
Yeah.
Um, Unfortunately, I didn't have any questions ahead of time. We were a little behind, so usually I have some Q&A, but I'm sure I'll have plenty after this episode. But Brian, last spot, kind of the Stride Live signature. Too long, didn't watch, didn't listen. What's the one piece of advice an MSP owner can take today to help grow their business from 2 to 20 million?
Yeah, 2 to 20 million is get comfortable that operations is going to break as you grow. And it's like if you can do that and really focus on sales and really spend the time and the money or get a coach or whatever it is to get that engine going, in the end, your life, your employees' lives, the value of the company, it's all going to benefit you as all the way through. So, I mean, it's just, I can't say that enough, that it's one of those, start doing the things that you want to do.
Absolutely. Brian, I appreciate it. This has been great. We'll probably bring you on really soon. If you want to connect with Brian, feel free to reach out. Brian, anything that you want to leave behind? I know book, anything you want to shout out so they can find you?
Yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn, Brian Strong. You can see my ugly face, and it's easy to identify. And then that's coming out later this year. I'm really excited about it. I'm hoping around the September timeframe. So be looking for it.
That's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate you, Brian. Thanks for taking the time today.
All right, thanks.